Hey there, and welcome back to By His Grace Marriage Ministry Podcast. My name is Amanda. Shalom to all of you, and I hope that you all have had a blessed and prosperous week so far. We are nearing the end of our week, and I always look forward to the Sabbath as just a day of rest and to just be even more in His presence, because we should be in Yah's presence daily. But just to really have that rest. It's just such a beautiful gift that Yahuwah has given us, the Sabbath day, a day of rest, and to just really focus on Him. So I always look forward to the end of the week. It's been a pretty busy week, but it's been productive and it's been blessed. I am still receiving gifts in the mail. I'm just so thankful. I have received yet another book. I am receiving tinctures as well, which is another blessing to have, and I'm just so thankful. Yahuwah is so good, and I'm so thankful to these brothers and sisters that have, just blessed us tremendously in any way that they felt led by the Ruach. So it's been another blessed week, and just really thanking Him for a lot. And again, even though being in the midst of a trial, still seeing His goodness and mercy and love has just been incredible. So praise Yah. So I just realized as I logged in to record this episode that this will be the 97th episode. So just a couple of more episodes left, and then that will be it. So bittersweet. I'm a little bit sad about letting go of this podcast for a little bit. But at the same time, once again, another blessing. I'm so thankful for the knowledge that Yahuwah has given me to do this podcast ministry. 100 episodes is quite an accomplishment, and I don't say that in any prideful or boastful way, but I just mean in the sense of being able to reach others and just help edify others. It's just such a blessing. A lot of the knowledge that He has given me, I wish that I would have known a lot sooner than what I did, but still thankful that He gave me the knowledge. It's never too late to learn, right? So very, very thankful. And this episode is actually just going to be me answering some questions that I received via email. So that's going to be this episode. The next episode, I'm going to be talking a little more on having faith during your journey and your walk, especially if you're waiting to step into marriage, if you've been called to it, if you feel like your life has just fallen apart, everything's up in the air, things just couldn't seem to get worse. I'm going to be talking more about that tomorrow, and I'm actually going to be reading some scriptures from the book of Job. So stay tuned for that. That'll be a very blessed word, and I pray that it's edifying and encouraging to those that need to hear it. All right, so let me get on with the questions. Let me not go any further. The first question that I wanted to answer, I hope that I said this already in a previous episode, and if I didn't, I apologize. And if I did, I'm going to still go ahead and share it just in case. But I had someone ask me, will I still be available via email, and will I still be offering counseling? So the answer is yes. I still feel led to respond to emails, the ministry email. For those of you that don't have it, or maybe you just don't read the descriptions to the episodes, you just listen. The email for this ministry is byhisgracemarriage@gmail.com. So if you have any questions, any concerns, if you have prayer requests, if you just need counsel, whatever that it is, please feel free to email me at that email address, and we can go from there. If talking on the phone would be easier, or just more of a help, whatever way that I can help whoever needs it, I am still going to be available to do that. Absolutely. I am just leaving the podcast ministry for now because I've got quite a bit going on, but I still feel led for now to respond to emails, and if anybody needs counseling or prayer or anything like that, I would be more than happy to do that as soon as I can, when I have time. So yes, please email me if you need anything, and I will still be offering counseling. I don't charge brothers and sisters for counseling. I don't. I thought about that. I thought maybe that was something that Yahuwah was bringing me into, and I just didn't feel right doing it. I think that to help one another, I understand that we all need some form of income and things like that, but I am a huge believer in Yahuwah providing all of our needs. He is our ultimate source of provision, right? He provides for us. The scripture says so. And I don't want to take something that he has called me into to not only serve him and glorify him, but to serve others. I don't want to turn it into a profit or profiteering or a business or anything like that unless Yahuwah has said otherwise. So I do not charge for counseling. I'm not like these other ministries on YouTube and stuff like that charge an arm and a leg just to talk to them for 20 minutes or something like that. That's not at all what this ministry is about. So it's all about helping and edifying one another. So, and I probably should have mentioned that quite some time ago when I started announcing that I was going to offer counseling. And by counseling, marital counseling, if you're single, and you just need encouragement, I get it. I've been there. Whatever it is that you need, I will do my best. So that was the first question that I received. The second question also doesn't really have to do too much with marriage or family, but I thought it was important to touch this topic, like to talk about it, because I've actually experienced this quite a few times, and actually just today, and I'm going to share what happened. Just today I had an experience like what this person was asking. So I'm going to go ahead and share it. But their question was, as a believer, as somebody walking in truth and just trying to really be obedient to the word of Yahuwah, what do I do when I'm in public, when I'm out there and I'm just around a lot of things that I know are sinful or are contrary to the scriptures, and this person went on to say that it makes them feel really uncomfortable, and they just find themselves praying for Yahuwah to help them on how to handle the situation. Listen, and the reason why I want to talk about this, because A, it's important. B, I've been through this numerous times, whether it's been at a workplace back when I used to work, with my own family, my extended family, and just the public, society and things like that. I completely understand. I've had times where, so I have a teenage son, okay? And even though he's raised up in the way that he is in my home, and I've planted seeds of him very early on, he knows, what we're all about, he's still a teen at the end of the day, and he does go to public school. Not by my choice. Long story. If you have children, please homeschool them. And I know I'm going to do the same in Yeshua's name with my next little ones. But, so he wanted to visit the mall and stuff like that. Well, I didn't see really any harm in that, so we went, and it was uncomfortable for me because I didn't realize, of course, because the last time I had been to a mall was when I was probably my son's age. Growing up, that was the in thing, that and the movie theaters. But I didn't realize how many stores had such inappropriate stuff and demonic stuff, and I was just like, wow. And it gives me this righteous anger, and that it gives me this heaviness, that gives me like this sadness, that to see how truly wicked and evil our world is and how accessible these things are, in stores, on TV, the music, the games, the video games. And I'm just like, oh my goodness, and I could tell my son, like, he could see that I was uncomfortable, and I try not to always express it outwardly because I never want to come off as judgmental either. But I know that clearly these things are not of Yah. They're evil, they're wicked, they're demonic, and we just shouldn't be around it, period. And neither should any of these people. And it's just sad that people can't see that, being around loved ones, family members that still watch what they watch, listen to what they listen to in regards to music, eating the stuff, there's been a couple times that I have visit, my family, and they've just made pork chops, or they're eating bacon, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, because that's like the number one thing that Yahuwah says that we are absolutely not to eat is pork. Or if I happen to go shopping with them and they're buying these pork items, and does it make me uncomfortable? It does, because I know that this is a commandment, like this is clearly in Torah, clearly in the law. But again, remember that we're in a society that majority of Christianity and Catholicism and all majority of believers believe the law has been done away with. And for most of us that are in the truth, we know that that's not true. And it's really hard when you see loved ones take part in these things that clearly are sinful or are being disobedient, to the word of Yahuwah. So yeah, I've been in a lot of uncomfortable situations. I'll share with you the experience I had just today, as a matter of fact. I was like, oh my goodness, and it's not even just about beliefs, but it's like, where has the respect gone? You know what I mean? Like, my mom and I were just talking about this the other day, that nobody says thank you, nobody smiles, nobody says good morning, good afternoon, nobody says excuse me. I mean, people are just so like, I don't know, it's so sad. And there's just no regard or no respect, you know what I mean? And it's truly sad. But anyways, my son needed a haircut, and I took him to a barbershop. It was just him and I. And, I had to schedule this appointment, if you will, like a few days in advance. So these people knew we were coming. And when we got there, it was like 3 employees who were male. And then they had like 4 customers, including my son. Once again, all were male. So I was the only female there. But listen, not only am I female, obviously, but the way that I dress, clearly I wear my faith outwardly. So when people see me, listen, there are not many women at all. I don't think I've even seen another woman that dresses like me in Colorado Springs, Colorado. Clearly, when you look at me, you can tell that obviously I'm of some, in their eyes, religion or some faith or whatever. And, I've noticed that a lot of men have a tendency to have respect towards that. Well, not where we went. I'm sitting there, and my son is getting his hair cut, and these men, of course, and please understand if I have any brothers listening, I'm not being judgmental, I'm not trying to say anything negative, but men have a tendency that when they're together, especially men who just, I guess, either were brought up that way or they just didn't really care or whatever, they just were hyped up, if you will, and they were having a conversation. The language made me very uncomfortable. I mean, they were throwing the F-bombs left and right, and I just thought, not even so much my beliefs, but I'm sitting here, and then my minor son is sitting in the chair getting his hair cut. Typically, or at least this is how it used to be, when men would see or know that there's a lady or ladies present, and on top of that with children, even if they're teens, typically you would have more respect, and you would, watch what you're saying, watch what you're talking about. Thankfully, they weren't talking about anything too inappropriate. It was the language that just made me really uncomfortable, to the point that when my son finished his haircut, the gentleman that had cut my son's hair, he was respectful. Out of all of them, he was the more respectful one. And maybe because he had my son, he was cutting my son's hair. But I said, listen, is it always like that here, the language, And he said, oh, yeah, I'm sorry. You could tell that he felt bad and was a little bit embarrassed. And I said, listen, I'm sorry. It's just, we're not accustomed to that. And, I would have thought, seeing me and then seeing my son, my minor son, they would have maybe had watched a little bit more about what language they were using, And it was really uncomfortable, brothers and sisters. And it was 30 minutes of me sitting there. And I'm thinking that, okay, they see me, they know I'm here, no, that didn't change anything. They continued on as if I wasn't there. And I just thought that was very disrespectful. Again, not just because of our beliefs, even though we know that that kind of language is sinful. But I just thought it was a huge disrespect towards me as a woman, and then having had brought my son in. Now, I understand that these days, most women, unfortunately, talk this way as well, and most teens and children, but I wish people would understand that not everybody is like that. And clearly, just to look at me, you can tell, like, okay, like, let's watch our language, you know what I mean? I'm going to share this too. I remember I worked at a retail store back in 2019, and there were 4 managers at this retail store. I don't know why there were 4 managers, but there were. 3 of them were female, 1 was male. And I remember one day, and even back then, at that time, I wasn't even covering my head yet or anything, but the male manager knew that I was a Christian. He knew I was a believer because I had mentioned it. And so anyways, I remember one day I was in the break room. I was on my lunch break, and it just so happens it was just me, one of the female managers, and that male manager. And I will never forget this because I thought really highly of this person, because I thought, wow, this is a man of respect, and even though the other manager was a female, she had said a couple of things that, was foul language, and it was, the F-bomb and this and that. And I remember the male manager saying, hey, mind your language, and I knew he had done it not just because it was a workplace, because we weren't around any customers. We were in the break room and it was just us 3. But I just kind of knew that he did it because of me. And I really appreciated that very much, because I thought that was even though it was another female that said it, but it just showed his character, his personality, and the respect that he has towards women. And I will never forget that, because I just was like, wow, like, I felt that, he reminded that person, that manager, because of me, because I was there. Now, would it have been different had I not been there? I don't know. But I do feel like this man's, his character, his personality, and his just clearly he has more respect than a lot of men do. And I really appreciate that. And I find that very, very attractive in men, because that's how it should be, especially when they're a believer. That's just respecting them, period. You know what I mean? And I will never forget that. I will never forget that, because I just thought that was really, really honorable of him to do that. So being at this barbershop, I just was like, wow, they see a lady sitting here. Clearly she's of some kind of faith and religion, and has brought her minor son in. Let's be respectful, So in answer to the question that this person asked me, listen, all we can do is the best that we can. We can't change people. We can't change the world. And we are going to be put in a lot of situations and circumstances where it's going to be uncomfortable, because unfortunately the world and society is the opposite of Yahuwah's word and who he is. Our world is wicked and corrupt and just completely the opposite. And even with our own loved ones, and even with people we know, we're going to go through that uncomfortableness. We might be visiting something that might have something on the TV that's less than honorable, it's absolute garbage. And, there's going to be times where you might ride in a car with somebody and they put music on that is just not good. There's going to be times like what I've been through, where I've gone to restaurants, I've gone to barbershops, and people just don't care. But then again, I have had experiences that have been the opposite. Ever since I started covering and things like that, men have been very, very respectful. They'll hold the door open, and they treat me differently than how I've seen them treat other women that maybe don't reflect faith or just being a believer. You know what I mean? It seems that men have a tendency to have a little more respect for women that dress modestly and just, like I said, clearly wear their faith outwardly, than maybe a woman who is walking around immodestly and maybe has a mouth on her like a sailor. You know what I mean? And believe it or not, sisters, even though there are men that are like that, but believe it or not, a lot of men actually find that to be very unattractive in a woman. So just if you're someone that maybe has trouble with your speech, you kind of are one of those that tend to pop off at the mouth, and yeah, men really don't like that, even if they do it, but it's not attractive in a woman whatsoever. But yeah, I was really taken aback by that experience today. I was just like, wow, and it's so funny because I kept thinking of that gentleman that I said. I was like, I bet if he would have been there, he would have been like, hey guys, language, you know what I mean? I kept thinking about that. I was like, wow, but it reminds me too that there really are people out there. There are still people out there, whether brother or sister, male or female, that do have that respect, even if they're not believer, even if they're not, you know what I mean? Yeah, and if I ever was to see that man again, that manager that I worked with, I would tell him, listen, thank you so much, because not many people are like you, you know what I mean? Like, thank you for having respect and for respecting me, But yeah, I completely understand this person that sent the email, that they were just like, what do I do? It's uncomfortable sometimes. It is. It absolutely is. Just continue to be that light. We are to be a light to the world. We're to be a light, even if it makes us feel uncomfortable for a little bit. We're to just be that light. Of course, stand strong on your convictions and the word of Yah, and what is right, and that's all we can do. Just press forward. Be an example. Don't judge anybody. Don't pester anybody or anything like that. No. It's kind of like some of these people that do street preaching. Some of them I don't agree with, because they're just standing out there yelling, hey, you're a sinner because you're doing this and that and the next thing. That's not the way to get to people. We need to get to people through love and compassion and understanding, because we're also sinners as well. But calling out somebody like that and yelling at them and saying, hey, this, that, you're gonna, you're a sinner, you're gonna burn in hell, and all these kind of things. That's not the way to approach people, But we are to be that light on the hill, like Yeshua says in the New Covenant. We are to be that light on the hill, and all we can do is exemplify it and reflect it and radiate it, and that's all we can do. Yes, it's uncomfortable. I'm telling you, I've been through it many a times, even with my own loved ones, my own family members. And it took years, but they finally got to the point where now they're more respectful. Whenever I do visit, they watch their language. They kind of have a tendency to mind what they eat sometimes, not all the time. They're definitely careful about what they watch and listen to and all that. And I appreciate that, because it's respect, it's respecting me, it's respecting my beliefs, and just helping me to feel comfortable and not uncomfortable, and just pray for these people, just pray that maybe something you said or something you did, or simply that Yahuwah would touch their heart and open their eyes to their actions and their words, and their speech. That's all we can do. So, yeah, that's it. And then the last question that I wanted to answer, and this was a really good question as well. This does have to do with relationships and marriage and stuff like that. They asked, how long is too long to wait for somebody? This is a really, really good question. And I chuckle because I went through this too. And you know what? I can't give an exact answer, because it's different for everybody depending on the situation. And you're only really going to get an answer by praying about it and asking Yah, because He has that answer. Sometimes we end up waiting for somebody that we're not supposed to wait for. Sometimes maybe we were misled. Sometimes people think this is the person. It isn't. Sometimes there are delays. There are demonic delays or oppressions or attacks. And then sometimes we're the ones that cause, the delay, whether it's us or our spouse on the other side. But honestly, the thing is too, is that Yahuwah's timing is different. So it's hard to say how long is too long to wait for somebody, because, it also depends on where they're at. What is it they're walking through right now? What's the severity of it, right? It just really, really depends, And so my answer to this is I just highly encourage for anybody that's facing this or going through this, continue in prayer and just ask Yahuwah to show you or reveal to you, should you still be waiting? Should you not be waiting anymore? And when you're waiting, don't just, sit there and just focus on that all day, every day. Move on with your life and focus on the things of Yah, focus on his word, focus on the things he wants you to be doing, or maybe where he wants you to grow or change. But, actively wait. But I know sometimes you can grow very weary. I know that we can grow extremely weary in the wait. And I understand that completely. I've been there. I'm still there. There are still certain things that I'm waiting on. And I'm just like, how much longer is this going to be? Not that I ever want to question Elohim, right? I never want to question our Father. But I'm just like, gosh, it's been so long. But Yahuwah's timing is different, So it's really hard to say. Now the world will come out and tell you, if you waited X amount of time, forget it. Stop waiting for him. Stop waiting for her. Move on. It's not going to happen. But when we're in Yahuwah's will for our life, and this has to do with set apart marriages that he ordains, we can't go by that. We need to ask him, should we stop waiting? Do we need to continue to wait for this person? Do we, you know what I mean? And then ask him to reveal to you if that's what he plans to do, why it's taking the amount of time it is. Sometimes it's ourselves, sometimes it's our spouses, and there's not much we can do there. We just have to wait in faith, and again, I know that's hard. I know that we can have a tendency to grow weary in the wait, but just keep seeking him, because remember, we are to not do it in our own strength, but in his, we're not to try to understand it in our own understanding. It's supposed to be his understanding, right? So that's the best way that I can answer that, because once again, it's different for everybody. And again, it just really depends on circumstances and what's taking place, what Yahuwah is doing. Is it us? Is it our spouses? Just pray every day and ask him, to mercifully consider to reveal to you what it is, especially if it's you. You know what I mean? So, but that is it. Those were the questions that I wanted to answer. I just felt it was important to get them out there for everybody to hear. I hope that it's been of encouragement to you. And if there's any more questions, please feel free to email me. Now, again, I've only got just a few episodes left, but I'd be happy to respond to you via email with any questions, concerns, prayer requests, any counseling you might need or whatever. Please email me at byhisgracemarriage@gmail.com, and I'd be happy to respond to you just as soon as I can. Okay, so stay tuned for hopefully tomorrow's episode. I'm going to try to record it tomorrow. I'm going to be talking a lot more about faith. I'm going to be sharing some scriptures from the book of Job and one from the book of James. And I think that it'll really be a source of encouragement to all of you and help edify you during your walk or whatever season that you might find yourself in. So that is it, everybody. Thank you so much for listening. I pray you'll have a blessed evening, and I will talk with you in my next episode. Shalom.